Very good evening to you. Welcome to the West Ham Weekly on the West Ham Voice. Thank you all for joining me on a Monday night. I would like to ask you all if you had a great weekend, but I'm sure I'm sure you did, apart from West Ham, and the result that we got. For those of you who follow me, over the past, throughout the whole season, I've been someone that's trying to be positive with what's been happening. For most parts, backing Moyes and talking about giving him benefit of the doubt and suggesting that we haven't had the rub of the green in some games, and then talking about how we've had more than our fair share of injuries, and even buying into the notion that it could take up to 6 effing months to bed in some new players. But what finally made me wake up, I guess, if you want to say waking up, and acknowledge what's happening, is the game against Spurs. And it's not the result. It was the manner of the way we lost that game that hurt so much. Not so the performance in the first half was okay, but the performance in the second half was pretty drastic. And how ironic that David Moyes was pointing at 2 defensive errors, which cost us the game. It was far more than just 2 defensive errors that cost us the game. Look, I'm going to dedicate a large chunk of the show later on the game itself. I'm going to talk about, the tactics that we use. It's not going to be anything new to a lot of you. And I'm sure a lot of you are going to be finger pointing and saying, we told you so. But let's start with some other stuff about West Ham, because it is a weekly show. But I promise you, I'm going to go into some depth about the actual the game itself and about the tactics. But first of all, let's see who's in the chat, because I can see there's over 100 comments already. So good evening to you all. Who's first up here? Good evening, West Ham faithful. How are you? It's Nottingham Forest and not Notts County. Did I say it was? Good evening, Foxes. How are you? I hope you're down. I hope you're well. I'm just reading your next comment. Going down. Foxes again. I like them, but I'm sick of it. We've got an almighty attacking force that's wasted with an 8-1-1. Totally agree. Good evening to you, Epic. How are you? Too many last chances for Moyes. Yeah, I totally agree, but he will get one more chance on Saturday by the looks of things. Foxes again. Zinedine Zidane. That would be interesting. Good evening, Mr. Shios. How are you? Sullivan should be on the phone to Alan Irvine just to ask if he would take the job. He seemed very popular with the players and staff. No-brainer to me. Good shouts. But Irvine, we keep hearing all these stories as to why Irvine left and why Stuart Pearce left. From my understanding is they didn't want to do all the travelling, all the, the week in, week outs. They wanted to have a bit of a quieter life. Good, but it's a good shout. Good evening, Paul. The saddest thing of all is not that everyone suddenly realises Moyes' style of football is redundant, as we knew a year ago, but all that this incompetence is so boring, just like the footy. I can't disagree. I wish I could find a counter argument like I have done before, but unfortunately, I can't disagree. Bernie, I cannot even bring myself to watch the games anymore. We are one-trick pony just to keep moving the deck chairs about on the Titanic, that is. Well, imagine me. I kind of questioned myself at the weekend. Why do I do it? Why do I go to just about every single home and away game that I can? I haven't missed that many this season. And I've sort of walked away more times than not, sort of thinking to myself, that was just shit. But, you try and look for the positives, and you do come to a point where the positives are no longer there. Bernie again, I cannot see us beating Forest or Brighton myself, not unless we change what we're doing, as you can almost name the whole team, as you can almost name the whole team right now. Let's scroll down. Bernie, I see you've got a few comments there, but I will get to as many of you as I can. Good evening, Daniela. Yes, Moyes has to take a lot of the blame, but so do the players. Our front men need to stop bitching about not playing and put their chances away when they do. That's a good shout. I don't disagree. Usual. Good evening to you. This whole debacle is now down to the little Welsh dwarf. He has buried his head up his ass for too long. Give Moyes his P45. I think, it's gonna be Saturday, but we'll get to that. Good evening to you, Martin. I hope you're well. Good evening, usual again. Ivan Tony is taking bets at Stowe. Very funny. Good evening, Andy. Good evening to you, mate. I hope you're all well. 6 points out of the last possible 33. Only 4 shots on target in the last 3 games. What's the chances of beating Forest? Good call. Howard, good evening to you. I'm going to talk about some stats later on, by the way, Andy. I'm going to run through this show so I can actually focus on the main issue, because I know that's what a lot of people want to talk about. Steve, good evening to you. Let's face the facts. 1 win in 11, 1 away win, and only 6 points all season. 19 goals, only 2 points in 23 games. Pathetic. I don't disagree. Absolutely don't. You know what I'm like normally? I try and see the positives. I'm struggling. Rhonda and Tony, good evening to you. Look at the positive. There's a positive. 1 or 2 seasons down against real football sides. Kids getting a chance. We don't have to play against sides that are owned by countries and the cheating Premier League system. There's the positive. There you go. Good evening to you, Vinay. I hope you're well. Lose against Forest is a disaster. Totally agree. Moyes staying is a disaster. No good options on Saturday. Steve again. And I still can't believe there are fans in the Moyes camp. Look what he said about Ings. He brought him here to score goals, and yeah, I'm going to talk about that as well. Si, good evening to you. We need a massive revamp from top to bottom. Irony is, I thought that's what we're having this season. That's the biggest irony. Putting in a scouting system, you know, the manager having, you know, the right to veto transfers, not having the board interfering. I thought that was it. Going out and spending 160 million. We had the revamp. It's just not being used in the right way. Good evening to you, Ed. I hope you're well. Thank you for joining as well. Let's scroll down here. We got Peter. Good evening to you. Forest, one of the form teams in the league. 3 wins, 3 draws, 1 loss from the last 7 games. It ain't going to be easy. These are the teams that we're expecting to get points against. Vinay, keep Moyes, because if we were in a relegation fight, he was available, would be the first. I did say that. I said that, you know, and there was a logic to it, but maybe the logic is no longer there. Neil, good evening to you. I hope you're well. 7:30 in the morning on a Tuesday morning. I hope you're well, Neil. Mark, I saw your message about your emails. I think I'm getting them, so I think they're all right. Mark, the more I think about this, I think David Moyes does not care if he gets the sack. He may see this as his last big job in football and may be happy to get a payoff. I actually agree with you. I think he will see this as his last big job in football. I think he's going to go for. He hasn't won as a lot of people say, he hasn't won anything in football. He hasn't won a tournament. He hasn't won a cup. And I think maybe he's seeing this as his last hurrah. And I think he's going to go for the Europa Conference, which is not beyond the realms of impossibility for winning. Isn't it strange how we play differently? And I know people are going to say, well, that was against Farmers League teams, but we've got some big teams coming up. And, if anyone saw the show I did about the first leg that was played in the knockout stages, we got Fiorentina in there. We got Lazio. There's several teams that we can play that we might be drawn against that won't be Farmers League teams. But I think that's what Moyes is going for. I don't know, but he's got to focus on the bloody league as well. Paul, good evening to you. 4 shots on target in the last 3 games, going down? Quite possibly. Good evening to you, Lee. I hope you're well. Thank you for joining. I am going to come and I'm going to talk about some stats in a minute when I get to the game. Peter, once again, Moyes looked like he had lost his bag of toffees and hadn't a clue where he left them when we went behind. You are so right. Daniela. Ed, so let's have the discussion on it and not just let a lot of Moyes outposts that gets us nowhere. Yeah. By the way, people, please do respect each other, because I know everyone comes with different opinions, etc. But please try. I mean, 9 times out of 10, people do keep it civil, and I really do appreciate that. But let's respect each other's opinions. Like you listen to me, and I know a lot of you don't agree with me, but we respect each other. So let's keep it nice and friendly if we can. Peter, still feeding the cats again. They came back today. They'd been away. She takes them to the mother-in-laws and they run around because we don't have a garden. They've been away. There you go. There's an update on the cats. Good evening, John. How are you? I hope you're well. Good evening, James. All you sober? I wasn't sober when I got home yesterday. Aaron, good evening to you. Yes, we are. Good evening, Bedfordshire Hammer. How are you? Thank you for joining, mate. Much appreciated. Who else we got? Chris, good evening to you. How's this clown still got his job? Good evening, Zouma's cat. How are you? I hope you're well. Rhonda and Tony. Do we have the players that will ignore Moyes and play different? I do ask that question, and I'm going to talk about, a little bit about what Declan said after the game as well, about the tactics that we used. And sometimes, don't you? But then, I don't know. I don't know. Do you take it in your own hands and do what you think is right? I don't know. I guess you're given a game plan, aren't you? And if someone veers away from that game plan, then what? Good evening, Adam. I hope you're well, mate. Thank you for joining. Good evening, Monumental. when we get a new manager, they'll probably give up on the Europa Conference and concentrate on staying up. Would you rather stay up or win the cup? I'd rather stay up and win the conference, because I still, by the skin of our teeth, and I'm going to get to the games that we're actually going to play and look at what games we should be able to win on paper. But at the same time, I think we've got more than enough to win the conference as well, ironically. Good evening, Galispera Keith. How are you, mate? I hope you're well. Steve, it's okay saying we have 15 games left, but that includes... I'm going to get to that, so do bear with me. V9, let's discuss the merits of a cannonball as a life vest. There must be some positives. Keep Moyes. Mate, I'm not saying there are positives. I actually started the show by saying I can't think of any positives. Stuart, unfortunately, we're potentially on the brink of World War III as far as Moyes is concerned, unless we're marooned in the bottom three and we're stuck there. True. Daniela, yes, and Forest are just 5 points off the bottom three. Remember, Sheffield United were 10 points off relegation with 10 games to go. We still went down. It is true that there's still about 7 or 8 teams that are involved in this relegation fight. You can almost look all the way up to Aston Villa. It only takes one team to lose a couple of games and they will drop. That's actually quite true. I'm not trying to sugarcoat it, but that is a fact. John, no balloon payments anymore for the clubs that go down. Does that stop? I thought that was still in place, but you could be right. I'll make you right. I'll check on that. Simon, how can he say Ings should score more? I'm going to talk about that as well. Good evening, down a Mysaurus rabbit hole. I love these change of names. Believe it or not, I'm no Moyes fan. I couldn't have guessed. Good evening, Steve. Good evening, Bill. Good evening, Steve Brown. I hope you're all well. English Yardie, thank you for joining. Black Country. I see Sullivan kicking the can down the road again. Some things never change. What a circus. It's interesting why they've not decided to do anything about it so far. But I just cannot see it going any further than Saturday. He's got to win. He's got to win. Sharky, good evening to you. And thanks for making it, John. I hope you're well, mates. Who else have we got in the chat? So let's go to Peter. Not having a proper captain hasn't helped this season. Having one we all know is off in the summer was totally wrong. I'll make you right on that. We all love Declan and what he's done for us, etc., etc. But yes, I think that's a really good point. I don't think that's the reason why we're doing badly, but it could be a contributor. 10 men. Good evening to you. Never going to outscore any teams with 8 defensive players. Worst displayed by any West Ham team for so long. Good evening, Lee. Hi, everyone. Galispero to you, mate. Sorry I ain't been engaged in the past 3 months of late. My condolences to you, mate. I totally understand, Lee, and my condolences. I hope you're recovering from it. It's not an easy thing to get over. My condolences, Lee. Good evening, G. I love listening. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. John. Chris Lockwood, there was definitely one tackle that Deck pulled out of in or around the centre circle. How Romero got away without a booking, I never know. Declan didn't look on form. And I know he's just come back from some sort of illness, etc. But he didn't look on form. He weren't the only one, though. Aaron, the worst about Sunday was my 5-year-old boy. We should like the team in white. They're a lot better. Oh, he'll learn. He'll learn. We all suffer the hard way. Tell him this is what makes him, strong and tough, following West Ham and knowing that we're going to get blow after blow after blow. Schmiegel, good evening to you. I hope you're well. Not much, mate. Everyone, we're all moaning. We're all having a good old moan before I actually get into the heart of the show. Lee, again, thank you. It gets harder as we go. It does get harder, mate. Totally understand that. John, Sully wants Moyes because he's a yes man. Well, is he? I don't know. He won't cough up a termination payment. Well, I don't know about that either, because you don't spend £160 million in the transfer window and then just cough up $5 million to let him go. It kind of balances. I don't get that. I think there's something else that's going on that clearly is why he's holding on to him. Starting new guy with his entourage might not be as malleable as Moyes, not seeing the big picture. But here's the irony, John. Like I said a moment ago, what Moyes did when he was given his permanent contract, he said, I want control of the transfers. I want a scouting network. I want to do things my way, etc., etc. And Sullivan went, yeah. I'll give you all of it. I'll give you all of it. He actually, did that. So there's the irony. So up until now, I still don't think Danny Ings was a Sullivan signing. I think that was, I don't think that was a Moyes signing. I think that was a Sullivan signing going to Moyes. Come on, mate. Let's do something about it. And now where's Ings sitting? On the bench. So he's a Sullivan signing and he's sitting on the bench. James, admittedly, I only saw the first half, but I'm the only one that thought we did play. This is the iron. I'm going to get to that in a minute. Down a Moyes Irish Rabbit. I'm campaigning for the SNP. Hopefully they get independent before Saturday and Moyes must return to Glasgow. Good evening, Graham. I hope you're well. Football is essentially a form of entertainment. There has been zero entertainment this season. Watching a desperate man holding on to his paycheck by his fingertips is embarrassing. Can't disagree with that. Good evening to you, CC. I was in Liverpool. We lost 1-0. In Manchester, lost 1-0. Same tactics. Definition of madness. Moyes playing the same tactics, expecting a different result. 10 men. Moyes will beat Forest. That's the problem. It will always keep resetting, going nowhere. It's going to depend on the performance as well, to be honest. Oh, I don't know. Is it? It might only depend on the result. You might be right, 10 men. Nigel, good evening to you. Will there be again Saturday? We'll be there again Saturday for Forest. It's like Groundhog Day. Great pre-match beers and optimism. Depressing 90 minutes of morning on the way home. I know what it's like. Mark, how are you? It is a long time no see. I'm very well, and I hope you are too. Thanks for joining, mate. Much appreciated. Good evening, Matt. Apart from the results, all good. Oh, you're all saying hello to each other, and that's what I like. Graham, as if yesterday's wasn't painful enough, we have been forecast 40 centimeters of snow in the next couple of days. Oh dear. I feel sorry for you. I don't feel sorry for the people that tell me it's 40 degrees baking hot. I hate that. That's what you do sometimes when it gets a bit hot out there. Kent, good evening to you. I'm so angry after Sunday. There's been some very prickly comments and discussions over the last few days. Fan bases arguing with each other. If people think differently, boys has to you know what? This is the one thing, Ken, and you've hit something nail on the head there. That it's really created a massive divide in the fan base. You know, and we do all have our different opinions. I mean, that's what football's about. You know, we see things very differently. I have up until now, and I've admitted it. I've admitted that I've tried to sort of see the positives in what that the club are trying to do, what Moyes is trying to do, etc. And there do come points where you go, you know what, it's no longer working. And sometimes some people get to that point later than others, and that's fair enough. But I agree. What it's done is it's created a massive divide in the fan base. You know, we are all West Ham fans at the end of the day. And although we see things differently, you know, we want the best for the club, I guess. Black Country. I don't care about any cup this season. More important is our league position. You know, I get that. But I think Moyes will still go, well, whilst he's here, we'll still go for the Europa Conference, sorry. John, Moyes done another podcast, YouTube interview last week and said he wants to win trophies with West Ham, but if he gets sacked, not the end of the world. Yeah, I read that, and I'm going to touch on that as well. David M, look at the rest of the fixtures. I am going to get to those, actually, so do bear with me. Good evening, Ashik. How are you? West Ham must focus in Europa Cup. What, and forget about the league? That I don't agree with. Tasman, good evening to you. No point sacking Moyes now until the end of the season. I believe we will be relegated and we'll spend a couple of years back in the Championship. That's an interesting point. I still go. Won't be happy, but I'd still go. Best of. Good evening to you. We have the players and the quality. We're not creating anything. You're absolutely spot on. Totally agree. Good evening, Tommy. How are you? Watch better games set up over Hackney Marshes. This man is in the wrong sport. Good evening, Victor. You're not wrong. Good evening, Victor. We all know it's the West Ham way. What's happening? I'm sick of the mediocrity that seems to run through our club. Matt, thank you very much indeed. Much appreciated for that. Chris, I've got no issues. I'm worried. I'm worried if we win as Moyes stays, but I'm worried if we lose as we're staring down the barrel of relegation. Why are we in this position? Well, it will all point to one man. You know, and the tactics that he's been using, and all of us, well, certainly me, thinking that at some point he will change things. The irony, he changed things on Sunday, but not necessarily for the best. Debbie and Mark, good evening to you. Moyes doesn't even start Ings. Understands Skamaka being on the bench, coming back from absence. When a goal down, instead of bringing on subs, try and hit back. No, Moyes must leave it till late. Yeah, I'm going to talk about that as well. Good evening, Wolf. I hope you're well. It was just your opinion. I know you wanted to believe Moyes would change his tactics, but I think he must have made a bet with Quatarian to get West Ham relegated. Well, Paul, Antonio podcast comes true every game. Sit back and nick it in the last 10 minutes. It doesn't work. Certainly doesn't. Good evening, Trini. How are you? Evening, Stel. This annoys me a bit from Dex. He has only realised what his tactics or lack of are they like before now. Well, you know what? Someone asked about, taking it in their own hands during the game. Why don't the players do the things that they think are right? Declan Rice is meant to be, the wingman on the pitch of David Moyes. So he can't be looking to be disagreeing with him. So it's interesting that he actually did say something after the game at the weekend. I'm sure Declan Rice and most of the players, well, Antonio's being outspoken about it as well, as was just alluded to. I'm sure these players are seeing different. Do they have conversations with Moyes? Do they actually get an opportunity to sit down with him and say, it ain't working, boss? We need to do something different. Do they have it? And does he ignore it? Or does he not give them the opportunity at all? Do not know if Ariola's quote is true. Something about being around people. Yeah, I saw that. Sometimes we want to read too much into that. He's going to be an important part of the West Ham because we've got the FA Cup game next week. We've got Europa Conference coming back. So players like Ariola will get to see some game time whilst we're still in those competitions. Andrew, the paraphrase Moyes, I will look into the player's eyes. And, yeah, I know. Yeah, he ought to look in the mirror and ask himself if he's got the fight. Matt, Sharky, hello, mate. Good one, Matt. Sorry, I'm trying to get through a lot of your comments. Daniela, 3 people are now said to have died after the earthquake struck southern Turkey on Monday. Another one, week after a deadly quake. That's sad news. That really is sad news. Trini, season is a long way to go. It's nowhere near decided. That I agree with. There are 15 games, and I'm going to talk about the 15 games that are coming up and trying to analyse which of them, which of them do we think we got a chance of winning, and which of them do we think we got no chance. So I will look through them in a moment when I get my script back. Wolf again. I'm just tired of Moyes advertising himself in all these podcasts. He's constantly saying how well he's done. Yeah, that's getting a bit niggly now. Whereas before, at the beginning of the season, or even coming up to like around about the World Cup, I was like, yeah, listening. And now it's like, mate, you said that the other day. He was on a podcast last week and he talked about we don't have a right to be where we, to be competing and all that sort of stuff. And again, he did talk about, the last couple of seasons. I love the last couple of seasons, but now we're entrenched, deeply entrenched. We're way past the halfway mark in this season, and we just got to focus on it, haven't we? Tommy, he destroyed our club youth policy, team morale, worst star of football in the whole league. The youth policy, I've got a different opinion of, because I think we all think it's just Moyes. And I did say in the last couple of shows that other teams in the Premier League don't necessarily play their youngsters either. So it's not just a Moyes thing, but I get what you're saying. Schmiegel, if Moyes gets the sack, they will only appoint another cheap yes man who is past his sell-by date. Well, I wonder. Down. Sullivan is deep down a Moyes' hole. Sullivan is a dinosaur. Anthony, good evening to you. 35 points maximum going down. Fans, Moyes and the board. The captain should talk to the players and do it their way. Ignore Moyes' instructions or we're stuffed. Would they do that? Should they do that? Is that the right thing to do? I don't know. I don't know. I hope you're well, Kevin. Thank you for joining, mate. I hope all is well with you as well. Mark. A positive, by the time the under-18s are ready for the first team, Moyes will be gone. I'm going to talk about the under-18s in a minute as well. Victor, can we all talk about other teams being in trouble with us, but it's irrelevant when we can't win games ourselves? I totally agree. It is irrelevant. We just got to focus on focus on West Ham, haven't we? We can't. It doesn't matter what happens with the other teams. If they win, lose or draw, I think I said it at the weekend when I did the preview. We cannot rely on other teams to keep us out of the bottom 3. We just got to focus on our game. I totally agree. Who we got? Chris. Tasman, 307. Spot on, mate. Captain who's leaving and we're in a relegation battle. Give it to a Gerd. It might be a bit, yeah. I actually don't disagree with that. I think it is not good that Rice knows he's going to walk away from all this at the end of the season. Bill, when players' wives start, yeah, I saw that. Apparently Lanzini's wife put something on social media about, not playing her husband. I don't understand that either. Tony, the board can't get a new manager because no one wants a short-term contract. Rafa and Bielsa want 3-year contracts and Sullivan does not want that. I don't know that, but that's an interesting point if that is true. De Pablo, the players need leaders to follow, and both our manager and captain aren't bothered about being with us at all. You know, I'm not putting this all on Declan. I think I do agree, actually. I think I said it earlier in the season that I just thought it was a bit weird. That I got the logic, you know, that Declan Rice would be made captain, but then when you know that he is, I mean, it's 100% he's going to leave at the end of the season, then you do start asking yourself, was that the right choice to make? David, don't know why Sullivan is kicking the can. Yeah, we've done that one. Oh, hang on. Let me, got this. When you got the stadium, parachute payments, Rice leaving potential. But it doesn't cover what's, you know, this is the thing. If we go down, you know, the value of the club goes down. The value of every footballer that we've got goes down as well. You know, you remember when we got relegated years ago when we had to sell everyone cheaply, you know, and the same thing will happen. If we think Declan Rice is worth over 100 million now, whilst he's still in the Premier League, what's he going to be worth if we go down? We get what, 50? 55 maybe, something like that, if we're lucky. And then all the other players, Scamacca, 35 million, we'll have to get rid of him for 20. Paqueta, 50 million, we'll have to get rid of him for what? 25 million, you know, so it doesn't make sense for us to go down. The parachute payment won't cover any of it, to be quite honest with you. Chris, I never thought I'd say this, but Benitez will do a much better job than Moyes. Kevin, still, if you're working on the building site and the boss said put the roof on the bottom, would you do it? No. Right, I tell you what, let's stop there and let's go into the first part of the show, because I want to, and we've already talked an awful lot about Moyes, etc. But let's do other bits first, and I promise you we'll get back to the Moyes issue. Right, so let's do very briefly other things, other news. So there's we got a new man at the back. Bartosz ANDRYSZAK has moved to West Ham United from QPR in the role of performance analyst. How ironic it all is. Performance analyst. I wonder what he'll analyse the performance against Spurs was like. He also has a scouting degree, so it will indeed be interesting to see how he's utilised by David Moyes. He came from QPR. He was there for 10 years. He's now become a performance analyst for David Moyes. I mean, what a time to get a performance analyst in. I don't know what he's going to be doing. Apparently, he'll be performance analysing the first team and give Moyes advice. Will Moyes take it? Who knows? But welcome to the shower, ANDRYSZAK. Women's team, right? They haven't been playing this week, but they've all been involved in various international friendlies. Dagny Brijansdorf here played for Iceland. Kirsty Smith and Lisa Evans played for Scotland. Emma Snell played for Denmark, and Hawa Sissoko and Vivienne Assayi were in action for France. The women's team are back in action very soon. They're in the FA Cup, the 5th round of the FA Cup. Tickets are on sale, £10 for adults, £4 for juniors. We might see a few goals. They're hosting Aston Villa at Chigwell on Sunday at 3 p.m. If you want to go and see that, please do. West Ham under-21s now. They played, they had a hard-fought game against Arsenal at the week on Friday night. The Irons went to the LV Bet Stadium in good form with the development team winning their 5 of their previous 6 league matches. But unfortunately, in the game, Arsenal took an early lead and a good spell for the hosts when winger Joel Idaho collected a possession and unleashed a powerful strike on the edge of the box. But 8 minutes from time, Keenan Apaya Sam was fouled in the penalty area, and who stepped up to take it? Man of the moment, Divine Mbama, made no mistake from 12 yards out to get a well-earned 1-1 draw. Look, the under-21s, they didn't start off very well this season. But they're now 10th in the league, and they're sort of shifting their way up slowly. They've got Brighton in the next game, and if they beat them, they leapfrog them to 9th place. Now, last week, I said the under-18s lost. I mean, shock horror. But they were back in form at the weekend. After suffering a rare defeat at the hands of Chelsea, the under-18s made amends by smashing 6 past Norwich. If the senior team ain't scoring, let's go and watch the under-18s bang them in, because Kevin Keane's Young Hammers, they responded superbly at Little Heath on Saturday, recording their biggest league victory of the season. They came out of the blocks pretty fast and scored goals. Favour Van Woman's solo goal was probably one of the pick of the goals. Other goal scorers, Callum Marshall, Liam Jones, etc., all scored. As a result of the high-scoring victory, the Young Hammers have moved 15 points clear in the Under-18s Premier League South. Have any of you been keeping a tally of how many goals the Under-18s have scored this season? Because I'll tell you something, it's pretty phenomenal. In the league itself, 15 games played, 113, goals against 23, goals for 55 goals this season. In all competitions, they have scored 69 goals. Our first team can't score for toffee. Kevin Keen's team is scoring for absolute fun. Amazing, outstanding season. And I know people are going to go, well, it's only the Under-18s. Yes, but nonetheless, they're doing extremely well. And let's hope there are one or two gems in the Under-18s who are going to push on to the Under-21s, and hopefully one or two gems in the Under-21s that might be knocking on the door of the senior team. I know what you're all going to say. David Moyes won't play him anyway, but like we said, there may be another manager coming in by the end of the season and maybe giving them an opportunity. The Under-18s, if you really want to go and see some fun, the Under-18s are back in action on Wednesday in the quarter-final of the FA Youth Cup at Portman Road at 7 p.m. It's the first time in 18 years that they've advanced to this stage of the tournament. Ipswich Town have already sold 2,000 tickets for this. I don't know how many of them have gone to West Ham fans. I've got no idea. But you can turn up on the at the gates and pay £3 to get in. Juniors for £1. If you want to go and see goals, why not take them to watch the Under-18s? £3, well worth it, I would say. Right, let's do a little bit of player news, because then afterwards we're going to go back to the Moyes issue. So, players in the news. Let's start with our loan players for a moment. Arthur Masuaku. There have been some really weird stories about Masuaku over the past few weeks. During the transfer window, there was an awful lot of talk about Masuaku not being wanted by Besiktas, and they wanted to get rid of him and send him back to West Ham again. And then it all went quiet. And then at the end, coming to the end of the Turkish transfer window, which closed last week, the stories came up again that Masuaku, they didn't want him, they were going to cut short his loan spell, etc. I don't really get where that's coming from. To be quite honest with you, he's been playing quite regularly for the Turkish team. He's actually been doing relatively well as well. He's had one injury which kept him out for a few games, but other than that, he's had a few substitution appearances, but other than that, he's been playing regularly. And now the latest rumour today is that West Ham United are willing to sell him to Besiktas for £2 million at the end of the season. Needless to say, the player, all this rumour about them not wanting him cut, they weren't able to cut short his loan deal because it's not in the contract. You know, they couldn't send him back to us because it's that agreement is not in the actual contract itself. When the rumours were bandied around before, there was a suggestion that if Besiktas wanted to stop his loan spell, they would have had to have found a club to take his loan on their behalf, because West Ham weren't willing to accept him back. So he's still there, and well, he's doing all right. Now, someone mentioned about another earthquake. I didn't realise, while we're on the subject of players in Turkey, etc., we've got to send out our condolences to ex-Chelsea and Newcastle player Christian Atsu, who they found in the earthquake recently. So our condolences there as well. Nikola Vlasic, they're playing tonight, Torino against Cremonese, but he's not playing. He's got a muscle injury, undergoing further examination to establish how serious the injury is. So he's not in action tonight against Cremonese. Connor Coventry, he's been loaned out to Rotherham, as we know, in the Championship. And despite their defeat at the weekend, he was voted against Coventry City. He was voted that Rotherham's man of the match. 43% of the 949 votes gave him the man of the match performance. He's doing all right. You know, we kind of knew that Coventry just needed game time, and he's doing okay. Will he do it in the Premier League if he comes back? I don't know. We've extended his contract for another year, so quite possibly it may happen. Next up for commentary in Rotherham, they're hosting Sunderland on, I think it's Wednesday, where he'll be playing against ex-West Ham players Ajibola Olise and Pierre Ekwa. Right, what about injuries? Well, Kurt Zouma, as it stands, our injury crisis seems to be coming to an end, thank God. With only 3 players missing at the weekend because of injuries, they were, of course, Kurt Zouma, Lucas Paqueta and Maxwell Cornet. It is reported that they're all back training this week. Even Maxwell Cornet, who's back today, Monday. For Zouma, there's hope that there's an outside chance that he might make the game against Forest at the weekend. Failing that, it's more likely he'll be returning for the game against Brighton on the 4th of March. Will he play against Man United in midweek? I don't think they'll risk that. So if he's not fit enough for the game against Forest, there's a 50-50 chance that he could make it. Otherwise, it looks like he'll be back for the game against Brighton. Lucas Paqueta, he's back in training as well, and he'll be in contention probably for a start against Forest at the weekend. But who would you replace him for? You know, Flynn Downs did exceptionally well on Sunday. Every time he plays, he doesn't seem to let us down. Souček, I guess, will be the natural replacement if Paqueta is back. So we're looking forward to see if he makes it back this weekend. And as I've said, Maxwell Cornet, he's back at Rush Green today. There's talk about him starting to train with the rest of the squad as well. I don't think we'll see him against Forest at the weekend, but he might look, he's going to have to build up match fitness, and it could be another couple of weeks before we see him in action. Or maybe the game against Man United in the FA Cup could be a game where you might want to give him a little bit of game time. The only other player that there was a concern over was Jarrod Bowen, where he picked up a challenge that should have been yellow carded in the game against Spurs. It went unpunished, but we've been told that he should be okay for the weekend as well. Right, let me get into your chat, and then I'm going to the final part of the show, which is going to go back to the game against Spurs and all your comments. So let's do a few more comments before I move on. Eamon, good evening to you. Don't want to be in the Premier League just to make up the numbers. If we ain't ever going to go for cups, what's the point? Here's the irony. I want to stay in the league, but I do also want to go for cups because we're never going to win the league. We're never going to lightly sort of finish in the top 6, top 7 on a regular basis. So the cup competitions are important for us, but not to the detriment of going down without, obviously. Tasman, Moyes lied to us all. His 5-year plan was to keep us where we are, and he said he wanted better players to improve the team. Why to stay where we are? Well, we got to put this in perspective, and this is not defending Moyes, so don't misunderstand me here. But we've got to put it in perspective. When we spend 160 million pounds, a team in the Premier League will go and spend double that, get away with it because they'll give player contracts for 20 years or something to spread the fucking cost. And that's the reality of Premier League football. When we think we've spent a lot of money, for West Ham United, spending 160 million in one transfer window is a hell of a lot of money. For clubs like Chelsea, Newcastle, etc., look how much money Chelsea spent in the January transfer window alone. It's almost like a piss in the ocean for them, and that's why I kind of get his mentality about staying where we are, because it's just sometimes you've got to spend that money on a regular basis, and we know we don't have the owners to spend 160 million every transfer window. If we did have, then that's a different story, and we should then be able to move up and stay up and keep competing. But unfortunately, the reality is that if we spent 160 million in today's money, it's almost like we're standing still. Debbie and Mark, if we get relegated, we're in big trouble. I totally agree. The likes of Rice, Ariola, Paqueta, Scamacca, etc., we all want to leave. And not only that, but we'll leave on totally agree. Yeah, I mentioned that just a moment ago. Schmiegel, for a guy that's clearly a very successful businessman, Sullivan hasn't got a clue on how to run a football club. Him and Moyes are cut from the same cloth. They're both prehistoric. And it's interesting. I mentioned that, I think, again, a few weeks ago. I did a show about Kretinsky possibly taking over or buying the stadium, etc. And what I've said about West Ham is true. Business-wise, sound, in terms of how they make money. They know how to make money. They've left the bowling with all the overheads, etc. They've moved into a stadium paying £3 million a year on rent, not a lot of overheads, etc. You get the business sentiment. If only they did the same on the footballing side, where would we be now? Totally agree. Chris, Ings is getting bedded in. Yeah. David, ex-West Ham employee said only a heavy defeat against Forest could change things, really. I think a defeat full stop could possibly change things. I cannot see it. The board the board will. I asked earlier on to people I know what's the sound, how's it sounding with regards to Moyes and the board, and I was told they're still backing him. I think a defeat on Saturday cannot go on after that. It cannot. John, the board should have changed Moyes at the World Cup break. That was their prime time to do it. Our league form has been terrible since January 2022. I totally agree. I'm going to scroll down, so do forgive me for not being able to put all your comments up. CC, if we're relegated, 20 players will leave. Contracts won't mean zilch. Completely new team, guaranteed to come straight back up. Well, you're absolutely right. There's a lot of players, and I think someone just listed a load of them. They won't stay in the Champion. Why? They won't. What loyalty will they have to stay and play for West Ham United in the Championship? I agree. Peter, it's funny how science channels list their teams start knowing full well Moyes would never change. I do it as well. I did a preview, and I was convinced that Ings was going to start. I was like pretty much nailed on. I thought he was going to start him, and of course, how silly of me. Thank you, Lee. Look, I should do it right at the start of the show. If you're new to the channel, please hit the like and subscribe button and the bell notification. That would help me immensely. If you're an existing subscriber, I'm sure you've already hit that like button, haven't you? Kaozi, good evening to you. So there you go. Thank you, Kaozi. Much appreciated. Wolf, yeah, the first 30 minutes were good. Soucek looked good in the first half, then all collapsed. Sadly, one shot on target isn't enough. I totally agree. Andrew, well, here's the interesting thing. Why doesn't Kretinsky speak out? Because as I've been told many times, over and over again, Kretinsky looks at West Ham United as one of his investments. He doesn't look at West Ham, and there's all this talk about Kretinsky will buy out West Ham and take over, etc. It'll be interesting to see if he does do that. I kind of don't think he will. And I keep being told that Kretinsky just views West Ham as one of his many investments. He's got God knows how many around the world. What is he? Part owns the Royal Mail. He's got shares in the Royal Mail. He's got a stake in Sainsbury's. He's got a stake in various oil companies and utility companies, etc., etc. And apparently, he just sees West Ham as just another investment, and maybe that's how he's looking at it, and so he keeps himself at arm's length. He doesn't seem to get involved in the day-to-day. Apparently, when there are board meetings, he doesn't turn up for them. He's got someone who's on the board who does all his talking for him, etc. That's probably why he doesn't speak out. To him, it's an investment, but it's an investment that can go pretty wrong if we go down. Trini, it actually does not make any difference about performances. We need to show fight and work rate now to get out of this. I totally agree. English Yardy, I've been numb watching us play for a long time. To have this scaredy cat as a manager, it's sickening. To have 8 defensive-minded players on the pitch is a fireable offence. It's a joke. I don't disagree. Chris, when it comes to youth policy, Man United plays their youngsters and Moyes feels West Ham are above it. Well, yeah. And who benefits from it more? Well, we can see what's happened in the past historically. Trini, if they ignore Moyes' tactics and we got a result, what could Moyes actually do? He would have to accept it. I agree. But would the players do that? Would the players take the ball by the horns and decide to play differently? I don't know, to be honest with you. Wolf, I didn't even feel bothered about the goals Spurs scored. I still love the club and I always want to win, but I think I'm getting used to it. I just hope this season we can stay up and somehow win a cup. I feel the same. P-Gads, good evening to you. It almost seems like everything went to poo when Stuart Pearce... Well, everyone is saying that, but we've got to be realistic about this. Stuart Pearce left at the end of last season. The rot started, if everyone will tell you, the rot started back in January 2022, whilst Pearce was still there. So I know what people want, and someone said, I think, in social media, get Pearce back as a manager. Look, you got to. Pierce actually turns up for games. Pierce actually goes and watches. He was photographed. I can't remember which game it was recently. He was photographed with Moyes. He watches games. He comes to watch us, still watches. But Pierce has said he doesn't want to do the day to day. He just wants to, to be a pundit, have a easy life, etc., etc. But unfortunately, it did actually go bad, or started to go bad, before Pierce left. Tasman. Everyone says we have players that are too good to go down, but it happened to us before, and I can see it happening again. You're absolutely right. Daniel, good evening to you. Moyes is dividing us when we need to be united, but years of Sully, Brady, etc. What's new? Matt, full of rebellion, mutiny required, noble at the helm. Oh, army hearties. Good evening, George. I hope you're well. I just want to say that London is red. Well, thank you, George. I hope you don't win the league. Aaron, but thank you for joining. You've just boosted my numbers by another person. Aaron, Lanzini, Rice, Areola all calling Moyes out. Think he's certainly lost the dressing room now. Boys got to go. I think there are more players that are beginning to sort of start giving hints, aren't they? I don't know if Areola called him out, but Rice certainly did. Antonio's been doing it. Lanzini's kind of alluded to it. I don't know what all this this stuff that Areola put out and what it's meant to signify. Simon, I thought about the Rice tactics comments was more about his role, being told you've been given the attacking role and not performed. So he was told to go back to defend. You know what? I think it's right that Rice, where does he play for England? Declan Rice is told, sit at the back, defend the back four, don't move from there. And you rarely see Declan Rice moving into the opposition's half when he plays for England. So why should he do it for West Ham? That's his role. He started off as a defender. He moved into a defensive midfield role. He should stay as a defensive midfielder. Does that stop him from progressing as a player? That's what, if and when anybody buys him, the game that they're going to get him to play is defensive midfield. If he goes to City or Liverpool or wherever he might go, Arsenal or whatever, the first thing they're going to say to him is, you're a defensive midfielder. That's where I want you to be. I think what Moyes has done is given him too much, he's allowed him to play a game that hasn't suited us. It has disrupted. And at the weekend, ironically, Declan was sitting back and Soucek was going forward. And in the first half, he almost got on to a couple of balls at the end, just missed out. So it kind of worked. And that is what we were successful on in previous seasons. Let's scroll down. Daniel again. Many in the squad have voiced issues with Moyes, Antonio Soufal, Benny Lanzini, now Areola and Deck questioning tactics. So can they collectively be behind him? I think they've got to. I do not know what goes on in the background. None of us do. Do they have conversations with Moyes? I would dare say they do. Does David Moyes listen? That I don't know. What could they do? It's like, I think, was it Trini that said it? What would happen if they actually go out and play their own game and get a result? What could Moyes do then? Good evening, Clive. I hope you're well. Thank you for joining, mate. Appreciated. Jenna, good evening to you. They've gone from 3rd to 16th this season. Gives me zero hope. It is poor. We have gone, well, we didn't start off 3rd, but I know what you mean. Good evening to you, Gart. I hope you're well. I think the difference between reality and us having 30 points is a Gerd missing most of the season, and other injuries and banned stop us sitting level with Liverpool. That's what I thought, Gar. I thought an awful lot of it. And I started off the show by saying that, we've been unlucky. We didn't get the rub of the green. We've had more than our fair share of injuries, etc. But what we're now starting to see more of is the tactics themselves haven't changed much. So I kind of got it earlier in the season because we did have a lot of injuries to our defenders. Some Moyes had to do makeshift and change players around, put back fives in order to compensate for the lack of central defenders that we didn't, that were out injured. And I also got it when with Zouma out and a Gerd, etc. I kind of get again the back five. I get it. But then if you're going to do that, then at least put enough attacking flair players on the pitch to give you a chance when we break to actually go forward. And that's where we've been mostly lacking, so some of that is true, but there's a lot of it now that's telling me, fine, play with a back five. I don't care. I don't care if we play with a back five, but then don't go ahead and play another 3 defensive midfielders as well and hope that 2 players who are going to be that far apart are going to try and do it for you up front. That's the problem. That's the big problem I think that we're all experiencing. Let's scroll down. Do forgive me. I'm trying to get through as much as I can. English Yardie. We will draw or lose on Saturday to Forest. It will be a difficult match. Moyes tactically will set up the same way. Facts. Moyes plays scared. Negative tactics. I don't know, Good evening to you, Reese. I don't know, Let's see what he does. I'm really, well, I've been hoping for quite a few weeks he's going to make a change, but who knows? Reese, I hope you're well. Thank you very much for joining, mate. Dodsy, how are you? I hope you're well. Mate, I didn't put any of your videos up and I feel really guilty. I'm really sorry. I'll talk to you about that in our chat later. Ashley, the players themselves need to take off the shackles and play the right way for the team. Never mind Moyes' tactics. Maybe then we'll see some results. A lot of you are saying that. How many teams do that, though? I don't know. I get it. I get why you're suggesting that. I don't know. WHU, good evening to you. I hope you're well. No. Don't miss him at all. Elbow, I hope you're well. I hear some more bad news still. Even if Moyes loses against Forest, he still won't get the boot. It's because there's no one else available for 6 months. We've got to hope for a miracle. I don't know. I've been told the same. I don't believe it, though. If we do lose, I really don't believe he will stay. Martin, still, could we have Mbappe, Messi, Ronaldo coming back from injury? Oh, we could have them coming back for injury, but then they'll be on the bench with Antonio up front on his own. Alan. So true. Cornet is back. Someone told me Moyes had been sacked when we found out it was wrong. He tripped over the welcome mat and broke his wrist out for the rest of the season. I'm so glad you still got you lot have got a sense of humour. Cornet probably got the COVID and he's in the 1% that couldn't recover full lung function. Well, that would be awful. Yes, mate, Dodsy. You are Moyes out as is Nick. Are you as Moyes out as Nick and Gary? Sean, Whetstone, Canning Town, Len, Nigel. Am I the only one left? Can you describe my lunacy? No. As you know, how do I say this? I want to see changes. And I've been wanting to see changes for quite a while now. Do I think that Moyes will do it? No, I don't. But I want him to prove me wrong. And I hope this weekend we see something different. I really do. To give me a little bit of faith that quite possibly we could, do something this season, at least stay up. John, when did Fulham get good? Don't tell me it's all Issa Diop, please. Apparently he's been playing exceptionally well. There you go. The irony, hey? Anderson, back at Lazio, he's one of their top goal scorers. What's his name? That's gone to Germany now. He's back from his cancer and he's beginning to bang in the goals. We've got Diop playing for Fulham and playing exceptionally well. I don't know. Trini, in all honesty, things looked like it would struggle to the last 60 minutes, but I don't mind that. I think this is what I said in the preview. Let him start the game, and if he only lasts until half time, fine. I bet you we'll look like a different team with a natural goal scorer on the pitch. I really do. Neil, I think you're right, Elbow. Even Leeds is having problems finding a new manager. In reality, who would want to come to West Ham and work under Sullivan? I think there are managers that would want to come to West Ham. It depends on whether West Ham would want them. David, good evening to you, mate. Please give me some good news that he will be gone. Can't watch this anymore. Unfortunately, he will be there for the game against Forest. I'm pretty certain about it. Elbow, Bielsa would love our academy players. Yeah, but I don't know about Bielsa. There's a few people that talk about Bielsa. I'm not, but he didn't do that well at Leeds, did he? So I don't know. I don't know. John, dead right. Kretinsky is in for a payday when the club is sold. Keep an eye on the carpet around the pitch. That's West Ham's only asset. Alan, 300 million for players in the Moyes era, and we'll be forced to sell them and be lucky to get a third if we're relegated. Club value would drop by 3/4. So exactly. So it's not in Sullivan's, interest to get relegated because the parachute payments and all that sort of gump ain't going to do it. It ain't going to cover the losses. You're spot on there. I'm going to skip, so do forgive me if I'm skipping all the way down. Chris Hall, get a few new names in. All I want is one game where we start 100 miles an hour, tigerish tackles, high pressure, good possession in the final third, just one game. Let's hope that is Saturday. Here's one for you, Stel. Jonathan, how many of these players are bothered if we go down? Probably not that many. Rice gets to leave on the cheap, more affordable, bigger clubs, and the others will all be able to get reasonable sized clubs. Don't disagree. I don't disagree. There will not be that many players in the current squad that will be that bothered if we do get relegated, because a lot of the good players will know that they'll go elsewhere. That is true. Bill, Pearce would have made his intentions known to the club after the semi-final. We went downhill after then, and Moyes probably snubbed him. Possibly, you might be right, Bill, but not, you know, when Pearce, and maybe you'll say that Pearce won't say anything derogatory, but when you ask Pearce about, you know, why did he leave West Ham, he said it was for more personal reasons than was anything to do with the club. Of course, I guess he'll say that, but he's made that quite clear. He said that several times over. Sharky, I don't want to see what happened against Burnley a few years ago happen again. That was madness. I don't want to see that. What? Fans running onto the pitch? I think that would be the worst thing that could possibly happen. Damien, good evening to you. Good night, still realistic. Realistic, if worst comes to worst, Bielsa will be the best gaffer, in my opinion. Different style of play. Academy players will definitely get in looking, plus a project. Good shout. Chris. From what I've heard, to get into Spurs corporate, you need to wear the badge as ID. Oh, is this about Noble being seen with a Spurs badge on or something? Yeah, I don't. Yeah. Mark, Moyes needs to do something radical against Forest if he wants to keep his job. Maybe play Benny in the Jesse Lingard role, set him free to run with the ball. Ings also needs to start. I don't disagree with either of those things, Mark. I think that they're good shouts. But will he start with Ben Rama? He didn't start him at the weekend. Bring him back for the game against Forest? Possibly. Let's scroll down. Monumental. Investors want to grow their money. Kretinsky bought into a top 6 side playing in Europe. He will have to pull out or buy out. It won't hurt him to sell, and he'll make a lot of money out of it as well. I don't think he'll be that bothered if he does sell. Flamer, I don't think he did buy in for a top 6 club. I don't think he would have known about West Ham's history. I think he bought in at a good time that I don't disagree with. But did he buy in thinking that we're going to be a regular top 6 club? No, I'm not so sure. A Premier League club? Absolutely. I don't think he would have thought that we'd be in danger of being relegated, but not necessarily a top 6 club. Flimmer, 8 defenders to get 1 point on every game all season. Moyes is killing the love towards our club. Right, you know what? Let's stop there for a minute. I'm going to have a drink, and then we're going to go on to... Right, we've talked an awful lot about this already, haven't we, to be quite honest with you. I asked myself, and I asked myself earlier, I did it at the beginning of the show, why I go to every home and away game, or as many as I can. And then I remind myself it's West Ham, because we love West Ham. And what we want to see is a team that will put in a performance, or put in a guts and glory, performance. Even if we don't win, at least, we can go away from games, as we have done many times in the past, and say at least the players put in a performance. But that's not happening at the moment. And a lot of people have kind of alluded to it. A lot of people have said, Moyes is stifling the team, that we're not able to put in a performance because of the way it's all set up, etc. And I think I can't deny it. We looked at the lineup, and the minute you saw one bit of joy with Downs starting, you immediately went, oh, hang on a minute, great for Flynn Downs, but he's got 5 defenders, 3 holding midfielders, and 2 attackers, of which both are neither natural strikers. Look, what I don't understand about the game on Sunday was, why did he change it? Why did he change what seemed to be doing okay-ish, a 3-4-2-1 formation against both Newcastle and against Chelsea? And why did he give Spurs so much respect by playing a rigid 5-3-2 with the 5 defenders, 3 holding midfielders, and like I just said, 2 attacking players? You know, it wasn't the formation we played in against Newcastle. We got a point away from home. It wasn't the formation we played in against Chelsea at home. And we got a point there as well. And many fans are suggesting, especially with the result that Southampton had against Chelsea at the weekend, that Chelsea were there for the taking. So what was in his mindset to want to have to change it? Now, here's an interesting stat, or some interesting stats. Now, a lot of people have been talking about possession and how they are really upset about the amount of possession that we haven't had over the last few games. Look at the difference with Newcastle away from home. It's pretty respectable. 37% possession. We had 10 shots to Newcastle's 8 shots. We had 1 on target to Newcastle's 2. So only having 37% possession, right, we didn't have a lot of the ball, but kind of we were in it. And then you look at the stats against Chelsea at home. Really, really poor possession, 28% possession. But then when you look at what we did with that possession, we had 10 shots to Chelsea's 12. 2 of our shots were on target. Chelsea's shots 4 on target. So again, even though we conceded a lot of possession, kind of like, you know, we were there or thereabouts. And then you look at Spurs. Not only did he change to a 5-3-2, 43% possession. Where was it going? It certainly wasn't going forward. However, it was going forward in the first half. We did look good in the first half. We actually created chances. We couldn't get on the end of them, but that's because we don't have a natural bloody goal scorer on the pitch. But, you know, in terms of our first half performance, it was all right. It was like, hang on a minute. His 5-3-2 seems to be kind of working because Souček was getting a lot further forward in order to, you know, aid Antonio and Bowen. And it kind of like, you know, in some periods of the first half, it looked like it was working. And then in the second half, of course, Tottenham went into the changing room. They made a tactical change. All of a sudden, we're on the back foot. Now, look, it doesn't take a genius to work out that Spurs were going to change it up. Spurs were going to play a lot higher up, going to put a lot more pressure on our defenders, get them to make mistakes, get them to sort of like be hasty with their passes, etc. Because in the first half, we were passing it around quite comfortably. And you can probably see why we had all that possession, because we were comfortable. We weren't that much under pressure by Spurs. Spurs change it tactically, you know, and what we did, we kept it the same, which was the massive mistake. You know, and you know, sometimes you call games a game of two halves. This was almost like a game of two halves. We weren't the great shakes in the first half, but we were no worse than Spurs were. In the second half, they changed it tactically. All of a sudden, we were on the back foot. You know, and what Souček found himself, whereas he was getting forward in the first half, what he found himself doing in the second half, having to drop. Why? Because we were more under pressure. He was having to drop deeper in order to defend, which left our 2 players up front, Bowen and Antonio, isolated, completely isolated. Now, look, I had a problem with Antonio at the game, and it wasn't just me. There was a lot of fans saying it. He weren't the only one that didn't play well. I alluded to Rice didn't have a great game at the weekend. Poor Ogbonna, who's probably going to be blamed for both goals because the first goal he was out of position, and in the second goal, one could argue that he shouldn't have been outbeaten by Kane. Maybe, I don't know, but you know, I mean, given the player coming back for a really bad injury, didn't think we were going to see much of him. All of a sudden, he's been asked to play week in, week out. It's not what I think Bonner expected. And I can hardly blame him for being a stellar defender all these seasons and then really being put in the shit by Moyes by expecting him to play week in, week out and put in total big performances. Now, look, I know why Craig Dawson had to go. You know, he wasn't going to play for the club. You know, he needed to move, etc. But that's what the bloody January transfer window was all about. We got Danny Ings in order to cover up front. Why didn't we do the same at the back, even if we've got a player on loan? And I feel sorry for Oggy because I know on social media he's been much maligned. And it's a shame because I don't think it was all his fault. I think we were put under pressure. They saw our weaknesses and they went for it. What Moyes should have done early in the second half was identifying the fact that they would change tactically, was change it. Don't fucking wait until we go a goal down in order to then go, oh, maybe I should do something different, or wait for that magical 60-minute mark when he decides to make changes. He would have seen it right at the start of the second half. They were harrying us, rushing us, etc. And Moyes should have gone, right, okay, I need to do something different. Now, the best form of defense is, as many people say, attack. Why not then, when we did reasonably okay in the first half and getting half chances, why not then go, all right, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll throw Danny Ings on now rather than waiting until we go a goal down. And then they've got something to worry about in their defense. We made it easy for them because they were pressing us. We pushed back. Souček pushed back. Left our Bowen and Antonio isolated. Antonio, nothing sticks to him anymore, I'm afraid. I think his days are long gone as a Premier League footballer. But again, like I said, he wasn't the only one that had a bad game. But if you'd have got Ings on earlier, his movement, and I talked about this in the preview when I suggested that I think Ings should have started. His movement would have been different. It would have given Tottenham something different to worry about. You know, he would have drawn players away. You know, it has created space, etc. Spaces that someone like Souček and Bowen could have saw some potential in, but it didn't happen. And we suffered for it, you know, and what was the focus after the game? 2 defensive errors. Well, you know what? You know, we shouldn't have got to that point. We should have given them something to worry about, just like we tried to do in the first half. You know, Declan Rice, in his post-match interview, he was spot on, wasn't he? You know, he talked about, he said the obvious. Declan, he said in the interview, playing 5 at the back, playing 3 defensive midfielders meant that the attacking players had little support up front. That has got to be, as a lot of you have been alluding to in the chat, that's got to be a conversation that Moyes and the players have got to be having this week. They've got to be sitting down, analysing the game and talking about what went wrong. I cannot think for the life of me that the players won't be turning around and saying, we're not scored. We've scored 19 goals in the Premier League. It's an obvious. We don't. David Moyes got in, or Sullivan got in, a natural goal scorer. And then he started talking about Ings, you know, he's got to score more goals, etc. Well, blow me down with a feather. He's not going to score goals while he's on the bench. Start the player. You know, and as I think it was Trini that might have said it, you know, if he doesn't see the game through, all right, we're not expecting him to. Give him the first 50, 60 minutes and see what happens. And then if he's blowing out of his arse, then go and change him and bring another player on. Bring Antonio on for the last half an hour to run at the defenses that we know he can do and he used to do, but doesn't do anymore. You know, and it put us on the back foot. The fact that we allowed Spurs to pressurize us and not having anything in response, that is what cost us the game, really. You know, Moyes talks about the lack of goals, you know, the concerns that he has in trying to find more ways of getting goals. You need a natural bloody goal scorer on the pitch to get you goals. You know, the last couple of seasons were great because everyone was chipping in. Fornals was chipping in and Bowen was chipping in and all the players were chipping in. Well, that's not happening anymore. So if that's not happening, then you need a focal point. You need a striker. You need a natural goal scorer on the pitch. No good having a goal scorer spending 75 minutes on the bench in order to go out and try and do something when the game is already lost. Look, we talked about the games. We've got 15 games left. Ings can't score on the bench. We've got 15 games left, and people have been asking in the chat, what are we going to, you know, what games are we going to win? Like, we've got bogey team. We're playing bogey team Brighton away. We've got Man City away. We've got Arsenal at home. We've got Liverpool at home, Man United at home, and another bogey team, Brentford, away as well. Now, out of the 15 games, that's 6 games you can almost say we probably won't get much from. We'd certainly, you know, we'd be lucky to get wins out of those 6 games. Of course, anything can happen. But let's say, for argument's sake, out of those 15 games, there are 6 games there that we might not get anything from. And then, of course, we've got 4 games away. Fulham, Bournemouth, on top of that. Fulham, Bournemouth, Palace and Leicester. None of those places are going to be easy to get results from. You know, they're not going to be easy places. That's 10 out of the 15 that could almost say are out of the equation. That means we're reliant on games to win at home, Forest, Villa, Southampton, Leeds, and Newcastle when it's been rescheduled. They're not easy teams to beat. People are talking already about Forest probably won't win. Villa, kind of do all right. I think they were extremely unlucky to lose 4-2. That 4-2 scoreline against Arsenal didn't give you a picture of the whole game at the weekend. Southampton and Leeds fighting for their lives. They're not going to be easy when they come and play us. And then there's Newcastle at home to be rearranged as well. So where are we going to get our wins from? I said that we need 6 more wins out of the games that we've got left. If we get to the point where we've got 12 games left and we still need 6 more wins, then I will have to say that the likelihood of us staying up is going to be very, very remote, whether we keep Moyes or whether he goes. Lose against Forest, I think. I really do think that if we lose against Forest, that will be it for Moyes. I cannot see it. I cannot see him staying beyond it. And I know people are saying, well, they'll keep him until the end. And like I said earlier in the show, I asked the question, I was told, no, they're backing Moyes, they're backing Moyes. I don't know. I seriously don't know. And then, people have alluded to the Moyes interview last week when he talked on the podcast about us kidding ourselves to expect to compete at the top 6 or 7 for years, to compete at the top for 6 or 7 years. And we're not entitled to success. Well, you know what? A lot of West Ham fans are realists. We don't expect to be competing at the top on a regular basis, especially, when we only spend £160 million every now and again. But we're not deluded as well or stupid to think that we should be in a relegation battle. What we did not expect is to be languishing in the relegation zone whilst watching a manager struggling to know how to use the £160 million worth of talent that he's got. I'm saying it, and I know I've not been saying it most of the season, but I am saying it now. We don't expect players to take 6 months to bed in because they don't do that at other clubs. It's a nonsense. We don't expect Moyes to not know where Lucas Paqueta's best position was because he must have been properly scouted, knowing that he was a deeper lying midfielder than number 10. We don't expect Moyes not to know that Scamacca will not flourish as a lone striker because, again, if he's been properly scouted, he would have known that. And with scoring only 19 goals, as I said in the league, we do expect Moyes to make some tactical changes to make us more of a goal threat. Moyes also talked about other teams in the great run of form, and other people have talked about it. Fulham, Newcastle, Brighton and Brentford. Are we not, at least, the very least, on the same level as these teams, if not a higher level? We should be. He talked about there being room for improvement. Well, where it starts is him improving, looking at the tactics that he's been using and changing them. And Moyes went on to say, let's see who's up for the fight of battling relegation, going to look in their eyes and see if they're up for the fight. Well, David Moyes, we're only up for the fight if you give the players the weaponry to actually go out there and put a fight up, because without it, with the stifling, and players have alluded to it, Declan's alluded to it, Antonio's alluded to it, etc. If they're going to be held back, then the fight ain't going to be there because they won't have the ammunition to put up the fight. All right. There are rumours, last week and beginning of this week. Apparently, we're in for Maurizio Sarri. Why would he leave Lazio? At the end of the season, but that might be a little bit too late if we go down. And then, of course, all the Pochettino rumours started to abound, of course, because we were playing Spurs, and so that was an obvious. And I know people have said it that he he'll be looking for a longer term contract, but there is only one manager, quite likely. If we do let Moyes go and bring someone in, Benitez is probably the man that West Ham might look to. Do I think it's the right move? I don't know, to be honest with you anymore. Certainly a change. If Moyes doesn't make the change this weekend and start with Ings and start putting on a much more attacking team, then I don't know where we go from here, apart from possibly going down. Right. I'm going to finish off with your comments. Vinay, would Areola have done better for the first goal against Spurs? I think it would have dived at the very least. Would he have done better? I don't know. I don't know why Fabianski was so far off his line to make it easier for the player to put it past him. Anyway, Trini, Diop has been a rock for them this season. He absolutely has. Absolutely. I'm going to scroll down to try and catch up. How far behind am I? Oh, not too bad. Moyes stumbled on a winning formula at the start of the second spell. Injuries forced him to do that. Now he has options. His game style is not to lose. He doesn't know how to win a game. Monumental. Our set pieces, corners were a 50-50 chance of a goal when we had Irvin. Also, Souček can't get on the score sheet. We had goals coming from a lot of different players in the first half of last season. Agreed. Damien. I'm on a down on myself, but should have seen it coming when he didn't go in for the January transfer for the second season in the predictable formation. Matt, why did we not start the second half with the same energy or give it maximum? I think, like I said earlier, because I think Spurs changed it. They tweaked it tactically. They said, put pressure on them, forced them to make errors, forced them to pass the ball quicker, and we should have responded to that. Moyes should have seen that. And like I said, should have changed it for us and maybe give them something to worry about. It was too passive. He allowed it to happen. E. Davis. If the owner and the board don't react to poor management, why should the players care? They see no ambition. Good evening to you, Mandy. I hope you're well. Looking at the two games, Forest v City and us v Spurs, there's no way we can beat a team growing in confidence that has pace. And that is the big concern. Vinay, if Moyes dressed up as Robin Hood on Saturday and wore a Forest badge, would he get the sack? Moyes is like Robin Hood, buying expensive and selling cheap, Allaire and others. Martin, I think Moyes is suffering from a broken heart or something ever since he was unable to sign. Now, I wonder, you say that in half jest, Martin. I wonder how much that affected him. Look at the speed we had when we had Lingard playing for us. We haven't got that speed anymore. The only player that's got that speed is on the sidelines recovering from injury, CORNET, ironically. Matt, that podcast, Moyes and the CEO and DM admits the players he thought wasn't good enough, but they were. Missed out on Europa League last season. My thing is now, was Ings the only striker available this January? I think it was forced on him. I actually don't think Moyes bought him. I genuinely do think that. Aidan, have a good evening at work, mate, and thank you for joining. Monumental. It used to be torture watching us against Brighton, but now it's everyone. The defensive taxes are only good if you're winning some. Agreed. They're going to love playing against us, aren't they, Brighton, in a few weeks? Graham, Moyes has lost his mind. He no longer knows what works and what doesn't. I have some sympathy for him, but I want him out right away. Mandy, he does not know what system to play with what players. It's shocking. It's shocking. That's why I talked about, we must have scouted Scamacca and Paqueta properly in order to know where their best formation is. Matt, we need Fornals back in the side, but not as a winger, or even have Manu Rice in Paqueta. Ain't ready for Forest. You know what? I agree with you on Fornals, and I've been asking myself for quite some time, what has Fornals done to actually be dropped from the team? He was a go-to. And then he did the dirty work. He did the work out on the left when he wasn't that type of player, but he did it, sort of willingly. He did it without moaning, etc. Played as a left wing back, gave it his best shot. And now, when we're actually need some, and I said this some time back when Scamacca was fit, if you want to get the best out of Scamacca, you need a player that's on his level. And why not have someone like Fornals sitting just playing as a number 10? That's what we bought him for in the first place. Playing as a number 10 just behind Scamacca, I bet they'll link up really well. I really do. And I don't understand why that's not happened. And I don't get why Fornals has become, it's completely gone. I don't get it. I don't understand what's happened for Fornals to have been dropped. It's weird. Sharky, if Bowen is missing for Saturday, then perhaps Fornals will get a start on the left and Benrahma goes out on the right wing. Interesting. Yeah, possible. Matt, Fabianski, Johnson, Naif Gerd, Oggy, Emerson, Rice, Fornals, Benrahma, Bowen, Antonio. I would not start Antonio, to be honest with you. I think what we saw of Antonio, and I tell you what, he was getting a lot of stick from the fans at the weekend. And I get it, and I admit it, that he was left isolated. I won't disagree with that, but I swear on my life, what we saw with Bowen, even later in the game before he picked up that knock, was he was trying to run, trying to create chances, etc. What we didn't see from Antonio was much effort. Nothing sticks to him anymore. When you used to pass the ball to Antonio, you were virtually guaranteed that he will bring the ball down and shield it, waiting for players to come into play. it just bounces off him now. You know, it doesn't look like, and I know it's going to sound horrible, it doesn't look like he wants to be there. He doesn't look like he's really that interested. I don't know what's going on with Antonio. We heard all the rumors and even him talking on these podcasts about, you know, offers have come in for him, etc. But the gaffer told me, you know, he ain't going anywhere, so just buckle down. But he's not sort of getting into it. And I honestly, it took a long time for Antonio played 70 minutes of that game on Sunday. I don't think he deserved to do so, to be honest with you. Trucking Hammer, good evening to you. What we need is the old chant, attack, attack, attack. That would sound great from 40,000 fans. Only if we attacked, I agree. Rude Geek, good evening to you. Surely there has to be a younger who can take the burden off Ogbonna. Well, the player that we had on the bench, I can't remember his name. Let me go back to the if I can get that. There we go. The player on the bench at the weekend, I thought it'd be Lang, but it was Casey, a young lad, another central a central defender who was there. Lang was originally one of the defenders from the under 21s. You know, I feel sorry for Ogbonna, but if he's not up to it, then maybe he should have done. He should have put, I don't know, maybe Johnson, Kehrer, and a Gerd in the middle. Maybe, you know, with a little bit more sort of solidity and pace. I feel sorry for Ogbonna because I don't want to diss him for the game at the weekend. Take Oggy off. I don't want to diss him for it because I think he's been fantastic for us. Down. Ogbonna is very young as far as Moyes is concerned. No one in the under 21 is really. Martin, we win and lose as a team. No individual is to blame. It's poor tactics from Moyes. That's fair point. Let's scroll down. Vinay. Yes, still, but Ings is not good at tracking back and he doesn't defend, so he's a liability through Moyes' prism. I know what you mean, and it's a shame. But, you know, and here's the other irony. The other thing that we were doing before in previous seasons, and I alluded to the goal that we scored against Chelsea when we were in a relegation battle a couple of seasons ago, when Yarmolenko scored. Antonio and Yarmolenko were waiting further up the field. When we broke, I think Chelsea had a corner. They lost it. The ball broke. Antonio whacked it over to Yarmolenko, who scored that amazing goal, because we always had players a little bit further up the field just in case the ball broke. We don't even do that anymore. You know, so I'm happy for Ings to goal hang, you know, because you don't know what's going to come of it. He ain't got a lot of pace, but at least he might be able to hold it up to get players in. I don't get it. I know you're being, you know, I know you're joking, but you know, having someone like Ings goal hanging, what might actually do us the world of good. Black Country. We all know where it's all gone wrong. Moyes still in the chair. That's where it's all gone wrong. I can't disagree. Anthony. Moyes, Everton, Potter, Brighton, crap everywhere else, and both have sides difficulty scoring. I don't want him. Let's scroll down. Tasman. Let's all hope the teams around us start having a really bad time and start dropping more points than gaining them. But we shouldn't have to rely on other teams to lose for us to stay out of the bottom three. Should we really? English Yardie. Still, we all know Antonio is not a forward, to be honest. Antonio, for now, should be on the outside. We have Skamaka and Ings as forward pair. Them together, why not? We have good players. We do have good players. We do need two attackers on. Maybe Antonio out wide, but honestly, mate, he just doesn't seem to put the effort in anymore. And I think probably Declan is to blame as well. I don't think Declan was all gung-ho at the weekend either, to be quite honest with you. Epic. We should have signed a left-footed winger instead of Ings. If Bowen gets injured, we won't have anyone who can take his place, unless, of course, we finally have Cornet coming back. Taz, I'm Moyes out, but who will come in tomorrow to take over? The board have already said they would want a Moyes to replace Moyes. We're really up the creek without a paddle. A big hole in it. Yeah. Benitez, would he do? Lee, thanks, still on chat. Let's hope our boys can roll their sleeves up and come good and get results. Be lucky, everyone. Lee, thank you for joining, mate. And again, our deepest condolences for your loss. Good luck to you, and I hope I'll see you soon, mate. Brian, I think Tot's easy to see that he has 100% lost the locker room. I think it's easy to see he's lost the locker room. The players were deflated in the second half because Moyes didn't change tactic. He didn't change them quick enough. Rob, Fornals number. I mean, it's a no-brainer. It's an absolute no-brainer. Even if you don't start even if you don't start Scamacca and Ings, start one of them, put Fornals behind. He's one of the few players that we've got in the squad that can do that job. Link up. I said it weeks ago, months ago. He can link up the midfield with the attack. He's clever enough to do it. He's got that ability. You put him out to the left and you've lost him. That's not his natural position. It's a shame. It's a real shame. Mark, should we go back to 4-2-3-1? We need some punch up front. 4-2-3-1. I wouldn't mind that, but the reason I know why we're playing a 5 at the back because Cresswell's finished. He won't play Cresswell. Cresswell was on the bench, I think, at the weekend. Let me just double check. Cresswell was on the bench. Yes, he was. Cresswell was on the bench, but he ain't going to play him after the Brentford game. You won't see much of Cresswell. You might see Cresswell in the cup, but that's it. I don't think you're going to see Cresswell. And because we don't have another natural left back, because Emerson's a wing back, he's not a left back. Because we don't have another lateral left back, I think we're stuck with a 5 at the back, unfortunately. I would agree, go back to a 4-2-3-1, but Moyes will believe he hasn't got the players to do that. Daniel, Benitez has now expressed interest in the Leeds job. Wow. Fornals, one of the few you see a pass, can always deliver, but crucially if you want to play Ings in. Yeah, why is Fornals not playing? I don't understand. Brian, Moyes is not... sorry. Yep, done that one. Thank you. Guna Gathering, good evening to you. I hope you're well and thank you for joining. Much appreciated. You're doing very well. I hate saying it, but you are doing very well. Would Zaha make sense? For who? For, what? For West Ham? We hate him, but we wouldn't do if he was our player, would we? Stephen Baptiste. Moyes needs to catch COVID again. We played great when he did. Rajat, what will your best Rice replacement be? I'm not talking about Rice replacements because I got bored with that. It's bad enough. It's bad enough, to be quite honest with you, that we have to hear it during the transfer window. It's even worse when the transfer window's not working and all people want to talk about is where Declan Rice is going to play. When he goes and plays his football elsewhere next season, good luck to him. But right now, all I'm worried about is West Ham. Guna, nothing but love for the Hammers. No, appreciated. I always appreciate people who support other teams coming and chatting. That's fine. That's all good. Disabled team, Leeds fans. And they've been following me for a long time. I hope you're well. There's a strong possibility that Leeds and the Hammers could get relegated. I hope not. But just being realistic, watching from the start. I know, mate. Oh, you're going to go back and watch from the start. Thank you, disabled team. Much appreciated. Adam. Football is up and down this year. Just one of them. Football is up and down this year. It's just one of them years. We will survive. And if West Ham, and it's West Ham, that's how it always has been. We all love a good moment. Boy, oh boy, we do, don't we? We absolutely do. Rajat, are you a West Ham fan or are you it's fine if you're not, but I'm just interested to know why you're asking about where Declan's going to play his football next season. Graham, great program. Thank you very much. We need something celebrating soon. Look, European football. By the way, if you haven't watched, I did a show the other day about the Europa Conference League, about the games that were played in the first leg of the knockout. So do go and have a look at that if you haven't watched it yet. I'm going to do an update because, of course, they're playing the second leg this Thursday. I might come on Thursday night live to talk about the teams that are going to go through and who we're possibly going to play, and give you a little bit more detail as to the 8 teams that we could be faced against. So look out for that. And also there's a draw, the Europa Conference draw on Friday afternoon. I think it's at lunchtime. Join me for that and watch the live draw with me. Eamon. That'll be something to cheer about. Eamon, I can't wait for Rice to leave. The Rice saga be over. Should have sold him at the beginning. Do you know what? A lot of fans are saying that now. You know, and ironically, a lot of fans are suggesting, would we be better without him than with him? Steve, you should have a show in the future with a few of us on. Just an idea. Who should have a show? Whoever it is, have a show. Invite me on. Julie, how are you? Am I going to see you on Saturday, Julie? Please say you're coming. I have no words. Think it's best I keep quiet. Let's talk about it on Saturday. Are you coming on Saturday? Just say yes. I hope I hope to see you on Saturday. John. John, post the updated ECL show in Irish app. I will do, mate. I will do. I'll post it on my Facebook channel, and I'll try and get it posted elsewhere as well. Thank you for that. Fat Gitchenko, good evening to you. I've been sent back in time for the future with this message. Sack Moyes before Forest game, otherwise you're doomed. Jonathan, we have a lot of positives for a new manager in Europe. We have a lot of positive for a new manager. Europe, the cup, and have a good squad of players. Just need a man manager or woman manager, and someone can change tactics on the fly. Good. I'm hope to see you. Great. It's good that we'll see you on Saturday. Steve, Stel, you have some of us on the. Stel, have some. I will do. I did actually ask in my community chats. If anyone was interested in doing small videos or coming on live to talk about a game. Now, the last game that we've got on a Saturday happens to be Forest. So what I'd like to do on Sunday is just have a few people either do a pre-recorded video or come on live for a couple of minutes just to talk about that game. Not anything else, just to talk about that game. So if you're interested, send me a message on the West Ham Voice at gmail.com. And tell me, yes, you'd like to either come on live or send me a video. And then what I do is I'll do a little show on Sunday afternoon with people on live and a few people on video, etc., to talk about the Forest game. Okay. So if you're interested, send me an email on West Ham Voice at gmail.com. Christ, I'm running out of steam here. Who else we got? Steve, no swearing. Seriously, no swearing, or you'll get me banned. Rooney, good evening to you. I still think we're not one of the worst three teams, worst 4 or 5 maybe, but still think we're not going down. Yeah, get Wiggy on. He won't come on, Julia, especially what happened with the that ITV thing as well. I don't think he'll want to come on anymore, but I'd love him to come on. Right, I've run out of steam. Done an hour and a half. Tried to get through as many of your comments as I possibly could. Do forgive me if I've not covered some of them. I can't. I'll be here till, tomorrow morning if I did. Thank you all for watching. If you're new to the channel, hit the like and subscribe button and the bell notification to let you know when I'm next on. I will be on this week, like I said, possibly Thursday night, maybe after the Europa Conference League games. Certainly try and do the live draw for the Europa Conference on Friday. What else? Do go and watch the show I've done about the Europa Conference after the first leg to give you an idea of the teams that may go through, give you a good indication of that. So you'll see me. Subscribe and hit the like button and hit the bell notification and all that gump, and have a good week. And I'll see you all very, very soon. Have a great week, everyone.